All right, well, welcome to your yoga for hands and wrists for desk workers. So, all you're going to need for our therapy session today is a yoga block and a myofascial release ball. But what we're really going to want to focus on is wrist extenders and flexors as well as hand release for when you've been typing at the computer all day and your wrists really hurt. This can be a really helpful therapeutic practice. So we are going to be seated for the majority of this. Now, if sitting on your heels doesn't feel comfortable, it might feel nice to practice sitting in a chair if you have a desk in front of you, or sit however is comfortable on the floor. The only thing you're going to need is to be able to access the elbow being on the block and being able to put your other arm on top, as well as eventually the ball under the hand. So floor space, desk space, whatever you have in your space with you. If you're at home, if you can sit at your desk, that would be really perfect. But we'll go ahead and get right into this. So let's start on the right side. You're going to take your right hand on the block with the elbow bent, palm facing up, so on the hairless side of the arm. Now we're going to use the left arm, the hair side of the arm, like a tool for massage. So we're just going to play around right here in the middle. So find the middle space between your wrist and your elbow and place the arm bone of the left arm right there. From here, you're just going to draw little circles. Now see if you can let your right arm just be really soft. Try not to be tense through the right hand or the wrist, maybe even just let it cascade downward. And we're going to play in this whole vicinity. So maybe moving that left arm up a little bit closer towards the elbow. If you move it down towards the wrist, you'll probably have to adjust your right arm a little bit so the block is underneath of it to support it. But find something that feels a little tender, not painful, but something that's giving you a little bit of feedback that might need some love, some attention. And just keep coming back to your breath. And now we're going to move closer towards the wrist. So to achieve that, I'm going to invite you to actually turn your block long ways so it's supporting the entire forearm. And then bring your arm closer towards the wrist. And we're going to do that same thing, little circles. Now, the nice thing about sitting on the knees, and if you're at a desk, maybe standing up, because you can shift your weight forward to put a little bit more body weight into it if you're not really getting any kind of feedback. Or if it's too much, you can sit the weight back, taking some body weight out of it, making it just a little bit more accessible. But maybe tilt the left arm so you're getting different sides of the right forearm, moving more towards the bone. And since the whole right arm is supported on the block, you can play around with different areas as well. And then release. Before we come on to the other side, we're going to do some hand release. So for this, you can come off of the heels and just have a comfortable sit. And we're going to just start to work through the entire hand and up into the fingers. So just drawing the outline of the palm with the ball moving in a circle. Now, if you feel comfortable staying on the heels, feel free to stay seated like that. And the same, you can lean a little forward to put more body weight in it, or you can lean a little back to back off, whatever feels the most inviting for your hands. But just covering the outside circle of the palm, so not right in the middle, but right underneath the fingers and towards the bottom edge. And then the next time you're towards the webbing of the thumb, pause. You're going to have your finger pads come onto the floor, and your finger pads are going to do the work. So it's like they're scrunching and extending. So the ball is just going to roll right there under the thumb webbing as you do this. This is also a really nice class if you text a lot to give the thumb some release. But just scrunch and extend the fingers, and the ball will do the massaging. And then release. So we're going to come into a little bit of a stretch. So you're going to place the ball right underneath the thumb, but the fingers are going to be on the floor. So the thumb is on the ball, the hand is pushing down towards the floor. So you feel a stretch coming through the thumb and down into the webbing and where it connects with the rest of the hand. We're just going to stay here and take a couple of deep breaths, just stretching through the thumb. And the sensation of stretch, we're going to do through all of the fingers. So move the ball underneath the index finger, let the thumb and the other three fingers rest on the floor. So you have that little bit of extension through that index finger. And you may notice the knuckle around the base of the index finger turns white. That's okay, we're just finding that gentle stretch and release. Same thing now through the middle finger, let all the other fingers rest onto the floor. And one thing I love about these therapies is we use our hands and our feet so much, but we hardly ever give them any therapy. But think about all that you do with your hands all day long, and we don't really take the time to allow them to recover. So even if you can't do this whole session every day, taking maybe one of these modalities and giving your hands some love each day can go a long way towards your hands and wrists feeling better. Move on to the ring finger. And you may notice one finger needs a little bit more attention. If it's extra tender in comparison to how the others feel, maybe you just work on that finger for a while too. And then lastly, the pinky. And release. And then the last one's just going to be little scribbles all over the hand, just to get the lymphatics going, to gather in metabolic waste and other waste, to remove it from the hand. And release. Now, this is just optional. It can be a nice way just to test to see how the hand and the wrist feel. If you like, I invite you just to come into a really quick downward facing dog and just notice the difference between the side you just worked and the other side. I know for me, the side I just released feels much flatter and broader in the contact on the floor. But just notice what you notice for about 5 minutes of therapy, the effect it can have. It can be really powerful. All right, go ahead and release. Let's do the other side. So start with your block running perpendicular to your body and place the meaty part of the left arm, the hairy part of the arm right there. So the hairless side of the arm is up, palm is up. Using the bony edge of the right arm right in the middle there of the left to massage. Now we will eventually work from wrist to elbow, but if this doesn't feel like a spot that's giving you a lot of feedback, feel free to adjust and move to a different area already. And we're not looking for pain or like a deep tissue style massage. We're just looking for some feedback. So when you feel a little bit of tenderness, just stay within that intensity, stay within that region. And again, you can move up closer to the elbow if you like. We are going to move to the wrist, but if that's where you want to go already, you'll probably have to turn the block off. But we'll go there together here in a moment. All right. Go ahead and release. Turn the block now so it's going to be running so it can support the entire arm. And come a little closer to the wrist this time. And again, using that bony edge of the right arm to do a little bit of massaging. And see if you can't soften the left hand. So rather than making a fist and keeping it really tight, let it go, let it soften. And then gently release. You can stay seated how you are or come out of that and sit more crisscross. And we're going to again just stay on the circle, the outside circle of the palm, moving throughout the entire hand. Now the fingers can be soft here. They don't have to be flexed or tight. And the ball may slowly move away from you, so you may have to keep adjusting it back into your space, especially if you're doing this at a desk that might be a little bit more slippery than a mat. All right, and then let the fingers find the floor and just scrunch up and push away. I'm just like bending the knuckles and letting the ball just roll right there at the webbing of the thumb. All right, let's stretch the fingers. So the thumb will be on the ball, the rest of the fingers on the floor. Let the meaty part of the palm also rest down towards the floor so you feel that stretch throughout the thumb and specifically right there in the front of the knuckle space and where it connects with the rest of the hand. And take 3 deep breaths. Same thing, but moving towards the index finger. So thumb and the other fingers on the floor. And really let the index finger wrap around the ball. And now the middle finger. And now the ring finger. And now the pinky. And release. And again, this is just optional. If you just want to check in and see how that feels, to one more time come into a down dog and just notice the connection of the hands. Maybe they feel really grounded, really anchored. And maybe you notice nothing at all, and that's okay too. And then slowly release. Go ahead and meet me in a tabletop position. And this next bit is going to be like cat cowing, but for your hands. So palms are on the mat. We're going to lean back into the wrists a little bit and just lift the fingers. So I'm hinging back. I've got some wrist extension or flexion as I lift the fingers. And then we're going to do the opposite. So press the fingers and lift the palms. And then reverse that. Press the palm, lift the fingers. Press the fingers, lift the palm. Let's do that 3 more times at a cadence that feels really helpful for you. So feel a little stretch through the fingers as they press, and then a little stretch through the wrist as the fingers lift. Last one. And release. All right, this is our last little bit. Come back to your block. You're going to place it so it can support both forearms. And just imagine you're windshield wipering the hands. So we're going to flex the hands. They're going to face each other, pinky down, thumb up. And then from the wrist, point the fingers down towards the floor. And then without lifting the arm up towards the ceiling. So they may not find a whole lot of movement here, depending on how the wrists feel. But we're inviting the wrist to move side to side. So coming out of that extension and flexion, but actually engaging the thumb edge and the pinky edge of the wrists. Take 2 more here. And 1 more each direction. And release. All right, hopefully your hands and wrists feel really yummy after all of that. Again, if you don't have time to practice that all the time, but you do battle with wrist or hand soreness from typing for a living, it can be nice to maybe take one of those modalities and practice that every day. Thank you so much for joining me for this therapy session, and until next time, be well.